Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're doing a bunch of recipes, things that I've been doing in my kitchen, lots of baking. And right here, jumping straight into this, I am making homemade buttermilk for scones that I'm going to make. And if you don't have buttermilk, I never actually buy buttermilk personally. You just need milk and some kind of acid. Now, I think you do need to use a dairy milk because of the fat content. But basically, I added some vinegar to a cup of milk, a teaspoon of vinegar, and it curdles the buttermilk like almost instantly. But if you have more time, let it rest. And this will give you tangy depth and just like a really nice balance of flavors to a lot of baked goods. You can use buttermilk in a lot of things. Cakes, it'll help lighten the cake. I'm using it in scones, as I said. You can probably use it in pancakes, all kinds of things. But don't go out and buy buttermilk and then you use like 1 cup and you've got 3 cups left and you don't know what to do with it. You can really make it super easily with either vinegar or sometimes I use lemon juice. Super easy. So today we're making scones and I want to talk about why. I hope you guys are doing well. I thought I would just give you some insight into some of my recipes that I've been loving recently. I made scones for no real reason besides the fact that I love them, and it's kind of just my form of self-care, baking. That's what I've decided. Some people work out, some people read, I bake. And I also try not to eat everything that I bake because otherwise I wouldn't be able to fit into this kitchen. So I ended up gifting my daughter's teachers a bunch of these scones and they seem to really like them. And if you don't have anyone to give them to, you can also freeze them. So somehow this week turned into a baking marathon. So then I decided not only were we going to make scones, but we're going to make homemade bagels as well. So that's what I'm doing here. Homemade sourdough bagels with a bit of honey for sweetness. We got the usual culprits, sourdough starter, water, salt. Lots of flour is going to be added. There's something about bagels that I am still trying to master, but it's really nice to be able to make them myself. I'm super excited here because I realized that I did not have a lot of bread flour, but somehow I made just enough. So that's why I'm celebrating. You gotta celebrate the small wins. We had a particularly heavy week, I feel like, in our sort of extended lives, and sometimes you just have to be excited about the fact that you just have just enough of the right ingredient to get you by. So I'm making bagels. They bring me back to New York. We lived there for over 10 years. So you can imagine that's like bagel central, and how can I ever compete with that? And I will say I need to still perfect this bagel recipe. They do not look the same as store-bought bagels. Maybe because they're sourdough and they're fermented. I think I overproofed them, which means I let them rise for too long. It doesn't really matter. Like, the kids still eat them, which is really what I care about, and they still taste really nice, and I like the fact that they're homemade. I know what's in them. They don't have any of the extra weird things that I can't pronounce on store-bought bread products, so that makes me feel good. So I've made the dough right now. Don't be intimidated by baking. The dough is quick, like 10 minutes, if that, and then I'm putting a wet cloth over it, or a wet tea towel. It needs to be wet, otherwise your dough will dry out. So that's why you see my towel is fully saturated, and because it's sourdough and now it's getting cooler, it takes time to ferment and for the dough to rise, so you need to have like a very damp tea towel is basically what I'm trying to say. And now I'm back to my scones because you gotta flip-flop between the two. While the bagels are rising, we're making the dough for the scones. As you saw earlier, I started off with a smaller bowl, realized no way is that all gonna fit. I'm also adding some sourdough starter to my scones, which gives them a really nice tangy flavor. Honestly, I just Googled this recipe and I can leave it down below. If you know a good scone, if you know about scones, you know they need to be moist. They dry out super quickly. They can often be really tasteless. So the more depth that you can add to them, which is what the buttermilk does, and then the sourdough as well, it's going to make them taste really nice on their own. And then once you add in all the good stuff, you're golden.
I was at the wrong place at the right time, 'cause suddenly there you were with those bright blue eyes. We were conversing under the night sky when you took my hand, said let's leave now. Don't wanna be shy, I will let my guard down.
Right, so when you're making scones, you do not want to be over kneading. You want to just be mixing in the ingredients, and a lot of that mixing can even occur on like a board, whatever. So now I'm rolling out the dough, and something I never do is I went all extra and I got myself a tape measure to measure what a 3/4 of an inch is, because growing up in metric world, I don't know what 3/4 of an inch is. Let me know if you guys inherently know this. You probably do. So I made sure to measure so that they will rise nicely, and then I am just using a glass. You can use a cookie cutter, whatever, and make them nice and round. And then we're gonna put them all on a baking sheet, and then we're gonna do it all again. So why are scones my comfort food? I don't know. Maybe because I feel like I'm English inside. Genetically probably am. And they're just so delicious, and you can dress them up. And we had a neighbor kind of growing up that would always bring over these delicious scones that she would make, and they take a bit of time. It's you're a bit extra. So if you're gonna make scones for somebody, like it shows that you care. There's extra love. It's not like a muffin or even like a biscuit, or cookie, or whatever you want to call it. It's extra. So now I've made my 2 sheets of scones, and I'm just going to put like it's supposed to be buttermilk, and I didn't reserve any of the buttermilk I used before. So if you saw there, I added lemon juice to some milk. So the first time I added vinegar, this time I added lemon juice, and I'm just putting like a milk glaze on them to keep them moist. I think that's what the recipe told me to do. So that's what we're doing. And now we're going to put them in the oven, and we're going to bake them, I think, for around 20 minutes. I'm excited because that's my lunch, dinner, breakfast the next morning. No, I'm kidding. I didn't end up eating all these scones, as I told you. I gave a bunch of them away, which was good. Share the love, people. And I think it's a good way to show people that you are thinking about them. So now I'm rotating them so that they don't burn, and you can kind of see what's happening over here. You want to make sure that you're evenly baking them. And I think with a lot of baked goods, if you have more than one tray of things, you need to be rotating them in the oven, and you also don't want to directly block the lower tray, if you know what I mean. Let me whip it up quick.
It has some. I like it.
You tasted some?
Yeah. It has some sugar. I have sugar.
No.
And my dad's one.
Wait. Do you like it? No? You just want some cream on it? Do you want some on a scone? Maybe.
I want it. Sugar drum. Mommy, eat it on myself. My jam. Jam.
Alright, I just had to include my little 2-year-old in there because she's not going to be 2 for much longer, and I just wanted to keep her in there. And it's a reality of being a mom of 3 kids that they're going to be involved in some way. So I was just whipping up some cream, which you absolutely must do with this recipe. Add a little bit of vanilla essence and a little bit of sugar. You don't need a lot, and they are so delicious. I also spared you the meltdown that she had, the midlife crisis over whether to have jam or not on her scone. Anyway, now I'm making some sandwich bread, I believe, sourdough sandwich bread, if I'm correct. because I have a whole bunch of things going on. I have bagels in that bowl that you see over there, and then I needed some just regular sandwich bread, because you will not believe how much avocado toast we go through in this family. It's an obscene amount. I think we eat like 3 to 4 avocados a day. So that's a lot of toast that you need. So I'm putting some bread together. I make this sandwich bread every 2 days probably, and I've made it before on my channel, but I can have the recipe down below. If you're interested, let me know. And I'm also making dinner, you can see on the stove at the same time, because multitasking is my life, and this is what you got to do. I do everything kind of, well, one thing is rising, something else is cooking, or something else is baking. In the background, someone else is having a crisis. So we're just doing all the things over here, as moms do. And then, because I'd made so many things and I get confused, I decided to label things. So that's bread, and then the other one is bagels, because they all look the same. Welcome to the next day. Look at this dough. So I was really happy with this bagel dough. I thought it looked pretty darn good, but yet I think I overproofed it. But that's okay.
I'm using your blue marker.
Oh, you are? Mom?
One of these for my party.
Oh, I have to see. I don't know if I can get one. Okay, it's kind of confusing because there's a bunch of different bowls going on here, but I transferred the sourdough, the sandwich loaf, into its loaf tin, and now it's rising, and now I'm going to work on the bagels. And again, I was really excited about this bagel concoction as well, because it's like light and fluffy, but I think it was overproofed. I ended up putting it in the oven with the oven light on, so it's warm. I think I left them too long, but you'll see they're still delicious. They look kind of cute and rustic and homemade. The thing about bagels is that you know, with baking as well, you kind of want to be precise and exact, and so I am measuring out the dough to about 100 grams of dough per bagel, and that's what I'm doing here. I would highly recommend, if you like to bake, to get yourself one of these little scales. They're very cheap. I think it's like under $10, and I use it all the time, because using just a cup measurement and kind of leveling with a spoon, it can definitely work, and I've definitely done that before, but it's not as accurate, especially when you're using sourdough and you want to know how much sourdough starter you need. So I really recommend a scale, and I use grams most of the time, which makes my metric heart sing. So now I'm forming these little dumpling type dough balls into bagels, and I think this part was fine. It was when I let them rise for too long in the oven. You'll see I put them in the oven just with the light on, and the oven is not actually on, it's just the oven light on. I left them in there for too long. They look beautiful, to be honest. They're big and fluffy, but I think they're overproofed. So this is what I was talking about earlier. So I need to work on this, because they're too light, and typically the way I envisage bagels, they're a lot more structured and dense. But maybe that's also the sourdough nature, maybe that's the homemade nature. I'm comparing them to store-bought bagels, which are going to be different, but I feel like they're a little like gummy. Still delicious, don't get me wrong, but I think I need to work on the recipe. Now, the key part about a bagel versus bread is that you need to boil it. That's what makes bagels very different from everything else. So I'm just preparing my pot, my giant pot. I'm going to add some brown sugar once it starts to boil. There you go. And then we're going to boil the bagels, sort of 3 minutes on each side, and then we're going to bake them.
We were dancing in the dark with a feeling in our hearts. Felt like we had it all. We were dancing in the dark. We were dancing in the dark. Whoa, oh, 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 whoa, oh, 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 whoa, oh, oh.
Something so relaxing about watching things bake. Makes life feel simple. So as I alluded to earlier, this week has been pretty heavy, and I just want to be embracing the simple things in life, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I bake. If you are having a heavy week, you're feeling like things feel overwhelming, just know that you're not alone, and we really have to focus on those small things that we can control. And if you stuck around this long, thank you so much for being here. Please consider subscribing, liking the video, sharing with your friends. I hope you learned something about baking today, and I'll see you soon.
We were dancing in the dark. We were dancing in the dark with a feeling.